remember me. These were Jesus' words at the end of the meal. And in hindsight, and as we look back over the layers of tradition, we sacramentalize this moment. We ritualize it. It's our main sacrament in the church, do in remembrance of me. But just for a moment, I want you to think about Jesus just simply saying, hey, friends, remember me. It's so quintessentially human to want to be remembered, to know that we made a difference, an impact, to know that we were loved, to know that we were of consequence. I've had people say to me as they were breathing their last, or they were certainly nearing, just maybe days away from going from this life to the next, take my hand and say, remember me. And I think that's what, in a way, Jesus was trying to say. And here we are, 2,000 years later, still remembering. Because he was of consequence. He did make a difference, and primarily in how he loved. And it's no surprise that he did this around a meal, because so much of our living happens around a meal. And we've been talking about meals with Jesus and how every meal he shared transcended some boundary, right? Uninvited guests showed up. He dined with sinners. He dined with all the people he wasn't supposed to. And he broke those barriers, those boundaries. And at this last meal that he shared, he broke another boundary, that between this life and the next. Because what happens at this table in that moment, and the faith that we bring to it, is that the veil is thin, that we are connected to the next realm. And there is another realm. I'm not certain of many things in my life. Seems like the older I get, the less certain I am. Anybody with me on that? But I'm certain that there's another realm. And in that communion moment, that was opened. And when we commune, we don't just commune in community, we commune with the saints. There's another realm. Those of you that grew up Catholic or perhaps Episcopalian will know the liturgy. God is with you. Lift up your hearts. Let us give God thanks and praise. It is a good and joyful thing to do always and everywhere, to give you thanks, God our Creator. Therefore, we join our voices with angels and with archangels and with the whole company of heaven and sing this song. We include the saints because that barrier has been broken and it is around a meal. There was a New York Times article this week that said, for many widows, and widows now is used for either men or women, for many widows, mealtime is the hardest. New attention is being paid to the role of food and cooking in grieving a lost partner. Perhaps this is your experience in this room, those of you that have lost spouses. The article says, in every culture or tradition, a community brings dishes to survivors in the weeks or months after a death. But for a spouse accustomed to sharing every meal with a partner, the grieving can go on long afterward, renewed constantly by the rhythms of shopping, cooking, and eating. And in fact, many of you are familiar with Elizabeth Kubler-Ross's 5 stages of grief. This article says it's almost like the 6th stage of grief is cooking or eating alone. Because so much living happens around a meal. So much of our life is tied up in food, but not until this week have I realized how deeply our saints are connected to food and to meals. Other religions and cultures honor their ancestors and their saints far more regularly and with intention than many of us do, for sure. But our saints say to us, along with Jesus, remember me. Don't you want to be remembered after you're gone? Buddhists and Hindus are kind of known for leaving food for ancestors at the little altars they make. You've seen it, right? Go into a Vietnamese restaurant, a Thai restaurant, Japanese restaurant, Korean restaurant, and you see as you come in, almost like a little shrine, and there's always food there. In fact, on Dia de los Muertos that we celebrated Friday evening, that ritual was developed 3,000 years ago by the Aztecs because they believed that you should not grieve the loss of a loved one. In fact, they believed that if you cried, that your tears would make the path slippery for those that had gone on traveling to the next place. They believe that this day is a joyous occasion, a time to gather with everyone in your family, those alive and dead. And they placed on the altar the favorite foods of their saints and ancestors. It is as like communion. The saint's presence is in the food. Is anybody with me? Because surely their memory is. So I was thinking about this, and my mother made probably the best apple pie in the world. And so last night I made an apple pie. And this might mean more to you if you knew how much my mother loved to eat, but anyway, and how much she loved food, and how that was the way that she showed love. She made a great apple pie. Please don't tell her that I bought the crust, okay? I know. Thank you. Thank you, Martha. But there she is. Oh my gosh. All right, I'm never going to get you back after that, so I might as well just say amen. Okay, just see if you can hold it with me for 1 minute. In some way, my mother is in the pie. That was my insight this week. Because when I make it, I think of her every time. I taste my pie and I think that's not nearly as good as hers. Thank God my father's not around to complain about it. But I remember all the love that she put into the meals that she would make. How she took pride when we loved her cooking. And how the kitchen and the mealtime was the center of our family life. And so she is in the pie. And I remember her. And I placed it along the altar because she asked me to remember her, and I do. It's in the same way with communion. When Jesus said, remember me. In some ways, he was just saying, I'm in the bread. So when you take it in, you take in me. I'm in the wine. Drink up, friends. Because it's my love. Like the grapes have been pressed out to make this wine, my love, and my life has been pressed out, and I share it freely. And it is sweet and powerful, and it lifts you up. And so I invite you today, when you come to communion, you'll have a chance to light candles for your saints, for your ancestors. And I invite you, when you take the bread in, not to only remember Jesus, but to remember your saint, your loved ones or one, and take them in. Remember them, because their memory lives on and is within you. Amen.